Hey, what's up everyone and welcome to Daily Code Buffer. In this video, we are going to learn about GraphQL and how we can create APIs using GraphQL. So without any further ado, let's get started. So what we are going to do is we are going to understand what is GraphQL layer, how we can create GraphQL layer. We'll go through the basics of that and then we will create the Spring Boot application. With that, we are going to create different APIs using GraphQL. So first, let's understand what is GraphQL. So generally, when we create the application, we create the application into different layers. So we create the application into representation layer, your business or service layer, and your data layer. Okay, generally these are the layers that we create to build our application to make it cohesive. Okay, so generally your entire business logic comes here at the business or service layer, and your data layer, your database, your whatever the database that you're using, everything comes at the data layer. And for representation layer, what generally we use is we create the REST APIs, right? This is what generally we create, and based on those REST APIs, we create the UIs and UX for those APIs. But at the same representation layer, we can create GraphQL. So GraphQL comes at the representation layer, your interaction layer, how you're going to interact with your data, how you're going to interact with your business logic. That's where the GraphQL will come into picture. So rather than REST APIs, rather than creating REST APIs that works on HTTP, you can create GraphQL layer. You can create GraphQL, which will help us to understand, or which will help us to fetch the data or modify the data based on the requirements. Okay, so that's the layer that we are going to create. Now, how it is going to benefit us? Suppose let's take the simple example of fetching the data. Okay, so you have three applications. One is mobile application. Let me just draw it here. You have Android application, iOS application, and your web application. Okay, these three applications are there, and those three applications connect to the REST APIs. Okay, and this REST API is having one API called post, okay, which will return all the post for the different devices that we have. And this post is going to return the list, and list has few attributes, suppose ID, name, title, image, and other things. Okay, so these are the data that it has. Now suppose Android, iOS, and web are the three clients for this REST API. So whenever they are calling this post API, okay, everyone is getting the same data. That's good, right? Because one API getting the same data. But what if Android wants to call the same post API but doesn't want the image? Okay, what if iOS needs the data for the same post but doesn't need the ID? Okay, that is not possible. It will get that data and it has to filter it out and not display it. That's what generally it's been happening, right? But with GraphQL, what we define is we define the schema, and with this schema we define the clients, like whatever you want you can fetch. We define that, okay, we are going to provide all these details, okay, with post query. So now whatever you need, you can fetch the data. Suppose Android wants that I want to fetch the data, but I just want to fetch ID, name, and title. Then it can pass those query to our schema, to our GraphQL layer, and we are going to send those data only. Similar thing we will do for iOS. We will define, iOS client will define that I want only this data. I want only name and title. I do not want ID and image. Then GraphQL layer will understand that, parse that, and it will only send those data. So you can see that how this will help us and how it will help the different client to fetch data based on their requirement. So we just created one layer, and any client can come here and get the data based on their requirement. So we just created a layer schema, and multiple clients can fetch the data based on their requirements. So it will be very fast for processing as well. So this was enough theory. Let's understand how we can build this. So what we are going to do is we are going to build a Spring Boot application, and with that Spring Boot application, we are going to create this entire schema, GraphQL layer, and everything. Okay, so for that, what we are going to do is we are going to go to our browser and we are going to go to start.spring.io. okay, so here we are going to create the project. So what I'll do, I'll use the Maven Java Spring Boot 3.2, and let me just define my group as Daily Code Buffer, and the demo I'm going to give as GraphQL demo. Okay, so this is my artifact. Packaging is jar, Java version is 17. Okay, so now let's add the dependency. So as we are going to create a Spring Web project, we are going to add the Spring Web dependency. Okay, with that you can add the data JPA dependency, MySQL dependency, and everything if you're working with your database. Okay, I am not currently going to work with the database. I'm just going to show you how you can create your GraphQL layer. Now to have the GraphQL layer, we need to have the GraphQL dependency. You can see this is the Spring for GraphQL, build GraphQL application with Spring for GraphQL and GraphQL Java. So this is what we are going to add here. So adding this, now let's generate the project and open an IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, I'll go to new project, not new project, open project. And here you can see that we have opened the project, that is the GraphQL demo. Okay, and if you open Maven main Java resources, here you can see that we are getting all the different folders, and here you can see that we are also getting one extra folder, that is GraphQL. This is the place where we are going to create our schema. Okay, so enough jibber jabber, let's build the application. So what we are going to do today is, rather not using the database, we are just going to use the service layer, and within that service layer I'm just going to maintain one list which will give me the data. Okay, so let me just build that one, because service layer, we have built the service layer enough time just to have the CRUD operations like create, update, delete, find and all those operations. Okay, so let's build that very quickly and then we'll focus more on the GraphQL layer. So let me just create the different packages here. So I'll define controller package, service package and model package. Okay, you can also call it as domain, but we are going to call it model because that's what we are familiar with. Okay, so these are the different packages that we create. Now we are going to create the models and services. Now we are going to work with our model. So what we are going to build the application is, we are going to build the application for, suppose cricket fever is on, right? So IPL is coming on, so we are going to create for the IPL. So what I'm trying to do here is, I'm going to maintain the players and those players belongs to which team. Okay, so that two things we are going to maintain here. So let me just create the two models for that. So I'm going to create player Java class, and this is the player record that I'm going to create, and I'm going to define integer ID, string, name, and it belongs to which team. So team. Okay, now team is not there, so let's create the team as well. So I'm going to create new Java class team, and this is going to be your enum. Okay, so here I can define CSK Chennai Super Kings, Mumbai Indians, Delhi Capitals, Gujarat Titans, so on. Okay, so this is what we have created, and now if you see in the players, this is also resolved. So this is the player record that we have created. Now within the service package, we are going to create a player service. Okay, this is what we are going to define this as a service here. So this is just your business layer where it will help you to get the data, fetch the data, all those CRUD operations. Okay, this is going to be very basic, which we are going to create quickly. So let's build this. So this is still not part of your GraphQL. This is just a business layer that we are creating. Okay, so what I want to do is, I want to store the records. Okay, so for that I'm going to have the list of players here. Okay, let me import array list and list. Okay, so this is the list of players that I'm going to have. Let me just add one atomic integer as well. Okay, this will help me to get the IDs. Okay, to generate the IDs sequentially. Now we need to have different methods. Method to create a player, a method to update a player, delete a player, get all players, and find a particular player. So these are the different methods that I need. So with the help of this list, I'm going to do everything. So let me just add one method. You can see this is the method to find all players, which is returning the players list here. Okay, simple. Then I'm going to create a new method. Okay, this is going to find a player here. Okay, so find one player based on the ID that is provided. Okay, so what it's doing is, it is streaming through the list of players here and filtering out based on the ID. So let me just define ID. Okay, so player.id equals to ID and find first. So you can see this is just a simple method, find one, which is taking ID and fetching the data from this list. So you can see that we are not doing any rocket science. We are just building simple methods to save our time as well, because these are the simple methods that we can build. Now let's create a method to create a player. So here you can see that I am defining a create method, which is taking name and team here. Okay, and it is creating a new player equals to new player, and we are using atomic integer dot increment and get to get the value, passing name and team, and that object is created, and we are adding that object to our list and returning that player. Simple. Now let's create a method to delete a player. So you can see that for deleting a player, it is also very simple. I am creating a delete method which is taking ID, and that particular ID we need to delete from the list that we have. So I am taking the player out from that particular players list. Okay. You can see that with this we'll get the player, and if there is no players available, then we will throw the exception. And what we are doing is we are getting the player and we are removing that player from the list that we have and returning that same player. Now let's do for the update as well. So you can see that for update also it's a simple method. Okay, so we created a method that is update method, which is taking integer ID, name that we want to update, and the team which we want to update. So these are the parameters that we took. Now based on the ID provided, we will create a new player. So you can see that we created a new player, updated player, with all the details that we passed. Now we need to find the player which is already available in the list, and we need to replace with a new player. Okay, that's what we are gonna do. So as we did in the delete player to find the player available in the list, we did the same thing here to find that player. So we did this find first. Okay, we found the optional player available. Now we checked if player is available, then we need to find the index of that particular player which is there in that list. Once we get the index, we will set the new player to that particular index. If not, we will throw the exception and we will return the updated player. You can see it's simple method. Now what I want to do is, whenever I start my application, whenever this particular player service is injected to my Spring Bean factory, I need some data to be already present in this players list. Okay, so for that we will hook into the Spring Bean lifecycle in the post construct phase, and once that particular object is created, we will add the data here. So let's do that as well. Okay, so I'm just creating a method init. In that method I am just adding few players here. Okay, you can see few players I'm adding and which team they belongs to, and I am hooking into the post construct phase. Okay, so once the object is created, all this particular data will be loaded to the players. Cool, you can see that your service layer is created. Now if you want, you can create your JPA layer, database layer, anything you want, that would be same. Okay, we are just concentrating on our representation layer, that is how we are going to create our GraphQL service. So let's create one controller as well. So I'm going to create a player controller. Okay, now whenever we are working with the GraphQL, we need to create a service. We need to define like what everything belongs to and what everything is, like what is your APIs and everything. Okay, how the client will be able to fetch the data. Okay, in REST APIs we create a controller and we define different methods, and on different methods we define what it's going to be, what is going to be get method, post method, and everything. So here also we need to define a schema here. Okay, so let me create a new file that's going to be schema.graphqls. Okay, this is where we are going to define our schema. So here you can see that your schema file is created. Now let's understand one more thing. Let me just clear this out. Okay, so now you can see that in the schema you need to do similar things what you have defined here. So you have defined few models here, right? So that models also you need to define in the schema, like what is the data that you're going to get back. Okay, so here within the schema you need to define your types. Okay, like what it is. So you have player type, right? So we'll define player type, and within that you will define what fields you have, and then you have one team as well, right? So that's the enum. So you will define that as well, that you have one enum of name team, and you'll define what team you have. So CSK, MI, all those things you will define here. Okay, then you have another type that is called query. Query type is nothing but to fetch the data. Okay, so whenever you want to fetch the data, you will define the type query, and here you will define what is the name of the query. Suppose you are naming as find all. Okay, if this is the name of the query, then when we are calling, or when the client is calling, it will define that that particular client is calling this find all query, and within this find all query you need to define this find all query will return which type of fields. Okay, if there are multiple, you can define find one, similar thing you will define here. Okay, so bunch of different queries that is helpful for fetching the data, you will define everything in type query. The other one is type mutation. Okay, mutation is useful when you want to mutate the data, when you want to update or create the data or delete the data. So whenever there is a modification in the data, you will define type mutation, and within that you will define the different queries, different mutation methods. So suppose you define create, you define update, delete and all. Okay, so this way you need to define your entire schema. So this is what we are going to do in this schema here. Okay, so let's go to our GraphQL, let's go to the schema and let's do this. So first thing was, let's create the schema model here. Okay, so we'll define type, and what was the name of the model? Player. And we'll define within the player, we'll define there was one ID which was of type ID. Okay, then one was name which was of type string, and one was of team which was of type team. Okay, so this thing we have defined. This is the same thing that we did here, one ID, name and string. Okay, now if I go back to schema, what I need is, I am placing exclamation. That means I always need ID. ID is mandatory. Okay, now we have defined team as well, so we need to define team as well. What was team? It's an enum, so we'll define enum team, and this is what we need to define values. So here the values were what? Let me just go here and copy these values. We'll go to schema and we'll paste those values. We'll just remove comma here. Okay, so here you can see that you define two things. Whatever your model was there, you define player and team. Okay, now you need to build the different queries, like you need to fetch all the data, right? So when you go to player service, you define different methods, right? That I want one to find all the data, find one data, all those different things. Okay, similarly we need to define here. So within this we will define type query. Within this query we need to define the name. Okay, so suppose I'm defining name as find all. Okay, so this is the name of the query. When I call this find all, what it's going to do? It's going to return the list of player. Okay, so this is the list of player. Okay, so this is what we have defined. Now we need to build this as well. So when you go to controller layer, here is something that we need to build. So let's go that. We'll go to controller layer, and here rather than defining REST APIs, we need to define GraphQL layer. So first, as this is the controller, we need to define as a controller. We are not going to define this as a REST controller because this is not the REST APIs. So basically this is a controller. Now we need the object of our service as well. Okay, so we'll define that as well. Private final player service. Okay, and it is asking us to create a constructor, so let's do that. Okay, so we created a constructor, and with that constructor this player service will be injected. So we are good here. Now we are going to create one method, that is public list of player. Okay, and we are going to name it as find all. Okay, which is going to return player service dot find all method. Okay, so here you can see that you created a method, okay, which is going to return the list of players. Generally what we do is, now at here we define @get mapping to define this is a get API. But here, as this is going to be your query in your GraphQL schema, right? This is going to be query. So what is the name of the query? Find all. So this name should be exactly the same, find all. And here you need to define query mapping. You can see that this is the part of GraphQL. So once you define this is a query mapping, this particular two things, here the schema what you defined here and whatever you defined in this controller will map together with the name here and with this query mapping. So now whenever the request will come here for the query find all, it will find here, and same thing, it is going to return the list of player, and this also is going to return the list of players. Okay, so that's one thing. So now what we'll do is, let's build this, let's run this application, let's see that we are able to find the data or not. Okay, so let's go here and run the application. So here you can see that you are able to run your application, and you can see that you have started your application. Now how you are going to run it? Okay, so similar thing, we will go to Postman. So make sure that you have updated your Postman. Your Postman is capable to run your GraphQL queries as well. And here what I'm going to do is I have created a new request, and my request is localhost 8080 GraphQL. This is what I'm going to do. Why it came to GraphQL is because that's the default path. Okay, if we go to our here, okay, you can see in the logs that GraphQL endpoint http post/GraphQL has been exposed, because that's the default URL. So that's why we are able to get this. So you can see that once I am doing this, it was able to find that there is one find all query already available. Okay, and once you open this, you can see that with find all, these are the 3 fields that we can fetch the data for. Okay, so I'll just select this, and here you can see that the query is created. So what is the query? Query find all. This is optional. Okay, you can give any name or you can skip the name as well. Okay, so what I'm doing here, that I want to do the query, and what is the name of the query? Find all is the name of the query. And now within the find all query, what data you need? I need ID, name and team. This is what I have defined. This is my query. Okay, now this GraphQL query will hit this URL, that is my GraphQL schema, GraphQL service that I am running, and it will tell that okay, I need to get data from this query, and these are the data that I'm required. Okay, once I hit this, you can see that I'm getting this data. Okay, that this is the find all query, and within this, these are the 3 data available. Now suppose there is a different client available. Okay, and that client says okay, similarly I want to find all the players available, but I do not need ID. So you can see that I have removed the ID now. So once I query this, you can see that I'm getting all the data, but I'm not getting any ID. I'm just getting name and team. Okay, similarly, if I tell that I do not want team, I just want name and ID. Okay, and I query it, you can see that I'm just getting name and ID. Okay, so you can see that how flexible it is when we create the GraphQL layer. So we are able to find data based on the client's requirement. Okay, if client needs 2 records and only 2 types of fields, they can get it similarly. Okay, now let's add another queries as well, another layers. So let's go to the IntelliJ IDEA again. Let's stop the server. Now I want to add the API to find a particular record. So let's build that. So I'll go to the schema, and here I'll define one. I'll define that find one. This is the new query that I want to create, and this is going to return single player. Now, if I want to find a single player, I need to pass some parameters as well. Okay, so to pass the parameters, we will define this way. What parameters we need to pass? I need to pass ID, right? And what is the type of the ID? It's ID. That's it. We have defined that. There is a find one method, find one query, which is taking the input of an ID, which is going to return the player. Okay, so this is what we are going to build here. So we'll create public optional of player. Its name is find one. Okay, this is a query mapping. Now what it's going to take? Integer ID. Okay, this is the input. Now here you can see that this is the input. Now how I will tell that this is the input? So in normal REST APIs, what we were doing is we were defining with path variables annotation or request param annotation. If it's a request parameter, it's path variable. We are going to we were defining with @path variable. So here we will define at argument, that this is the argument. Okay, and then here we'll define return player service dot find one method, which is taking ID. So here you can see that your another query is also created. So now if you run this again, okay, you can see that your application started and GraphQL has been exposed here, and we are going to Postman, and let me just refresh it. Okay, the same URI, you can see it's only showing one query, right? If I refresh it, now you can see that it is showing one more query. So let me just remove this, and let me just open find one. Here you can see that there is one argument of type ID, and it's going to return these 3 values. So let me just select this, and I'll pass on the value as 1. So you can see that this is giving me all the data, and here you can see that this is the way we are going to pass that find one, and within the brackets pass the ID, and it's going to return me first record. Okay, and similarly you can see that 6 is not available. Okay, so you can see that these two things we have created. Now what if I do not want to use this Postman client? You do not have Postman client and you do not want to install. Okay, so for that there is a GraphQL dashboard already available. So we can enable that GraphQL dashboard and we can do the query directly there. So let me show you that as well. So if I go to IntelliJ IDEA and if I go to resource application.properties, here I can enable the GraphQL dashboard. So these are the two properties that we need to add, that is spring.graphql.graphiql.enabled. So it will enable it, and what is the path for that? Path is /graphiql. Now you can see that now we are enabling it, the GraphQL dashboard, so we do not need to query using the Postman. We can directly use the GraphQL dashboard to query it. So let me just run this, and the server is started. So what I'll do is I'll go to the browser and let me just do localhost 8080/graphiql. Okay, so here you can see that this is your GraphQL dashboard. You can see that how you can use it. Okay, everything. So let me just show GraphQL Explorer here, and here you can see that I am having find all query and find one query available. Okay, there is no mutations available. So if I want to do find all, and if I hit, let me just remove this, let me just select find all, and I want these 3 records, and if I hit run, you can see that I'm getting all the records. Okay, so this is your GraphQL dashboard. If I remove ID, I don't want ID, then I can run it again and you can see that I'm not getting ID. So this way also you can enable your dashboard and you can query your GraphQL from here. Cool, right? Now let's go ahead and let's build the mutations. Okay, so let's go back to IntelliJ IDEA again, and now let's work on the mutation. So now for the mutation, what we have to do create, update and delete. That's the services that we have created, right? That is the create, delete and update. Okay, so let's go to the schema here, and rather than query, now we are going to create mutation. So we'll define type mutation. Okay, now within the mutation I'll define that I want a create one, okay, which is going to return a player. Now within this create, what I'm going to take as input, I'm going to take name, that's a string, and I'm going to take team, that is of type team. Okay, these two things I'm going to take as the input, and I will save the data. So this create I'm going to create here. So I'll go to the player controller and I'm going to create a method. So I'm going to define public player create. Okay, and now rather than query mapping, I'm going to do mutation mapping. Okay, and what are the input? String name and team. Okay, these are the two inputs that we are taking. So both these are arguments, so we are going to define both as argument 1 and argument. Okay, and here I'm going to call a return player service dot create, and I'm going to pass name here and team here. Okay, so here you can see that your create mutation is also ready. So let's restart it and let's see. So you can see that we have restarted. Let's go to Postman. You can also go to your GraphQL dashboard and do the same queries. So I'll refresh it, and this is the query, and you can see that now we have mutation also available. So within mutation, you can see that it is taking two arguments, that is name and team, and it will return the entire data, ID, name and string. So let me just pass name and string here. So name I'm passing as ABD Villiers. Okay, team is not available, so let me just put it to CSK as of now. Okay, so once I put it, it should create it and it should send the data back. Okay, so let me just query. Okay, so we need to define what we need in return. Okay, so here you can see that it created 6 and it is returning the data. So you can see that this is how the mutation is created. Mutation, what is the name of the mutation? Create. This is not mandatory. Okay, you can remove it. This is what it's mandatory. So within create, you are passing two fields. What is the name and what is the team, and what data you need in return. Suppose you don't need ID, you need another player, suppose Suresh Raina. Query it, you can see that you are getting this. Now if I do query and find all query, you can see that I should get all the records, right? You can 6, 7, everything is been added here. Okay, so here you can see that your create mutation is also working. Similarly, we can create for delete and update. So let's do that. So we'll stop the server. We'll go to our schema.graphql and now let's create update and delete. So for update, let me just copy this and paste it. One thing I'll do is I need ID of type ID. Okay, one thing extra I need, because which ID I want to update, that is something that I want to take. This is going to be your update and I will create one for delete. So let me just rename to delete, and delete will take only ID. Okay, and it will return the player. So you can see that this 3 mutation also I have created. Now we'll go to player controller and we'll create the mutation. So let me just copy this. Okay, and this is going to be your update. One more argument I'll be taking is @argument. It's going to be integer ID, right? And it's going to return update. It's going to take ID and name and team. So you can see that your update is done. One more thing, delete. Okay, delete is just gonna take ID. It's not gonna take team here, and this is going to be your integer. Okay, I'm going to pass ID here and the method should be delete. So you can see that 3 mutation method also I have created. Now I will restart my server. Okay, you can see that my server is started again. I'll go to Postman, I'll refresh it, and now you can see that now I have 3 mutations available. Update is also available and delete is also available. I'll pass the delete one here and I'm going to delete suppose 5. I'll query it. You can see that 5 is deleted. It was created as well because 2 mutations I called together. So let me just delete this and let me just call one thing. First let me just call find all. So I'm getting 6 records. Okay, so what I'll do, let me just remove it and I want to delete the 6th record, 6th value. Okay, and I'm querying it. I'm getting 6 back here, so which is deleted. Now if I do find all, I'm going to get only 4 records. Okay, 6th is gone now. Similarly, the same thing will be available in your browser as well. If you go to browser, okay, and let me just refresh it. So if I go here, you can see that in the mutation, you can see the 3 mutations are available: create, update and delete, right? All the 3 mutations are there, and within the query, 2 queries were available. So you can see that we were able to create a complete CRUD application here, and we were also able to create or enable the GraphQL dashboard, and we also saw how we can query those APIs as well. So now you should be able to create the GraphQL schema and create a representation, your GraphQL layers on top of your business layer. Okay, so you can see that how easy it was to create your GraphQL layer and build application on top of it. So if you are already working with REST APIs, try creating GraphQL, because there are many applications, many organizations using GraphQL as of now, as of today. So this was a quick introduction and quick application that we created using GraphQL. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for the upcoming videos. You can also click on join button to join my channel and support me. If you have any doubts regarding any of the things that we covered, then do let me know in the comment section below. I will link this code in the description below for you to check out. I will see you in the next video. Till then, happy coding. Bye bye.